Hello, everyone. I am on hour 13. Yes, more than halfway of my 24 in 24 for Sam's. This challenge that I'm doing to fundraise for my branch and also to raise visibility of what we do. Samaritans is a charity that is supports callers who are feeling suicidal. So it's a crisis phone line. And what I want to do is I want to make space for important conversations. And on this session, we're having Tracy. Hi, Tracy.
Hi, Pay. How are you doing?
I am powering through. This first time I'm properly doing an all nighter that wasn't work related. That was a long time ago. So my brain may not be entirely here. So, but I'm so glad to have you. And what we're doing for this session is I'm doing the how to listen to yourself session. This one I did at Women in Tech where you were at.
Yeah.
So it would be lovely to have your more engagement in your sharing of anything you want to as I go through. But how are you today, Tracy?
Yeah, I am good. I haven't been up since midnight. So the most important questions are you fed and watered, and have you managed to have a comfort break?
So yes, plenty. I've been plenty of watering, which meant plenty of comfort breaks. And I try to catch a little bit of a cat nap in between. So
Perfect.
I'm kind of okay. I think I will last till let's see. Right now. I think I will be able to make it to midnight, but my body is going to tell me what it thinks in a moment. So thank you for being here and helping me to keep awake. And so yes, so this is the how to listen to yourself, the inner self. I don't know if so. That's a QR code for anybody who wants to donate and help us keep the lights on, help us pay for our CRM, use Salesforce, our telephony system, our biscuits and chocolates, which are actually the most important thing at the branch. It keeps our volunteers going, especially when we've had a tough call. Also pays for training. So right, just very quickly, just a little bit about me. I graduated in the last century. I've had about 30 years of project delivery experience from a consulting side. The first half was a client facing technical and functional consultant, the latter half as a project manager. But the key thing actually I want to talk about is that the last 16, 17 years of my life, I've been a listening volunteer. So I joined before my boys were born, and they turned 16 yesterday. So I think it's about 17 years now. And what I found is that, I can kind of draw a dotted line here that since I started volunteering, um, my projects just got easier. People were listening better to each other. And one of the things that I found out is from my volunteering is actually people don't listen to their inner selves. Do you find that's the case, Tracy?
Yeah, absolutely. I'm also in tech, as you know, because we know each other from the Women in Tech groups that we attend and different Salesforce community events. But I also have a side hustle as a yoga teacher, and I do sound therapy and Reiki, and a number of other things. So you really find that not just in the corporate world, but also in an exercise world, that people just are not in touch with what their bodies are telling them. And I think that's why one of the reasons why I wanted to support you today. I mean, there are many. Obviously, Samaritans is a great cause, and I think suicide has probably touched more of us than we would care to admit. So it's brilliant to be able to support this. But I think also that inner conversation and the connection between mind, body, soul, and energy is so important. So yeah, it's something that's very close to my heart as well.
Thank you for sharing that. I didn't know that you do Reiki and sound therapy. One of these days, I'm going to ask you a bit more about that. Okay, so I started, when I did this at Women in Tech, I started by asking, whether anyone had, kind of lived someone else's lives and
Mhm.
expectations and dreams, and we got a lot of a lot of hands go up there.
We did.
I think it's uh, again more common than we realize, where we are running the program that other people have programmed for us. I mean,
Mhm.
uh, I think we've touched on that yourself as well, in different things, like expectations around getting married, having children, having the
Yep.
dog and the household, and this and that, and people just blindly follow, especially women, just just expect
Mhm.
that I should be with a partner and with a baby at 21, and so on, and all of that, which makes it difficult um, to know what we want, because we are internalizing what parents tell us we should be doing, the jobs we should be taking, and so on.
Sometimes it's really challenging as well to actually follow what your heart is telling you to, because the path of least resistance is to make everybody else happy and put yourself last. And I think a lot of women tend to, because of the nurturing instincts that we have, they always want to take care of everybody else around us. And then, you get to a certain age and you're like, oh my goodness, what have I actually done for me over the last 10 years? So, I chose not to have children, which was very difficult for my parents because they thought that I should have children. So, that again, my sister did live their expectations. She did have children, but taking that path of what I wanted out of life was the path of maximum resistance. And sometimes that can be a very uncomfortable place to be. So it's easier to conform.
Mm. I'm gonna ask you slightly, maybe, um, feel free to not answer,
Ask away, it's fine.
but do you think your sister, it's well and good if your dreams and your wants are aligned with what your parents' dreams and wants are, and
Yeah.
that's absolutely fine. But do you feel that she's got inner voices that she's not listening or paying attention to?
I think she would have still gone down the same path. I think she would have had children because it is something that she wanted out of life. I don't think she necessarily would have done it quite so quickly.
Hmm.
And we are very different in how we approach things, and we're also very similar. But it's very interesting, I think, when you start picking some of these things apart.
Yeah, yeah.
Um, and then also once you do have children, there's the extra complication of your parents believing that there is a certain way for you to bring those children up and will
Oh,
always have an opinion on those things. And
yes.
then perhaps you have your own ideas.
Oh my goodness, you've just opened a
A whole can of
can
worms.
there. I was, I'm Chinese, was brought up in Malaysia,
Mhm.
where capital punishment is, everyone did it. All my friends, we go out of line and we felt the whip of, a cane, and
Mhm.
um, all the parents would talk about where to buy canes, because obviously us, me and my brother, we hide them, uh, make it very difficult to be found. We that sort of thing. And what was really interesting, so two things. One is, I came over to England. I've been here for 26 years now. So my children, brought up in this environment where we've got super nanny and the naughty step and the naughty corner, different ways, right? And I remember checking on Facebook not too long ago, my classmates, they are talking about where to buy the best canes. These are my classmates, my same age as me, and I'm thinking, oh my goodness, it's yeah. So just going back to what you were talking about, was some of the comments I got from my parents was, well, if it was good enough for you, look at how you've turned out, are you now criticizing how we've brought you up by how you've chosen to bring your children up? And it's like, oh,
You're like, no, I'm not. We're just living in different times, different cultures, and I need to do what feels right for my inner voice.
yes,
Yeah.
yes, yeah, that was tough, right? Um,
Mm.
so in I asked the question also then is why don't we listen to ourselves? What are your thoughts? What are your thoughts?
Yeah, I think I've touched on some of my thoughts already. I think sometimes we don't listen because it's easier not to.
Mm,
Um, Sometimes we've drowned the voice out, I think, by building up a construct of what life looks like for us. Um, and sometimes, I've been in this situation myself, particularly when I was working in the hospitality before I moved over to the Salesforce ecosystem, in that, everybody around you is behaving in a particular type of way. Stress was almost worn like a badge in some of the companies that I worked with because, a 24-hour a day, 7-day a week business, there's always going to be lots of things that need to do. So you're constantly firefighting. So I think because you're keeping up appearances and you're part of that kind of, what's the word that I'm looking for? Almost willful ignorance of this is the way that things have to be, that you then lose your inner voice and actually forget to focus on the things that make your own energy sing
mm,
because you're in amongst all that cacophony.
mm, mm.
What do you think?
That is one very good reason you're talking about uh, misplaced values on over like you say working too much and things like that, and that being like a badge of honor. So I think there are many reasons, and during the women in tech a lot of people came out with
Yeah.
a lot of them. I feel though, again, just not scientific, but just based on a lot of the conversations that I've had as a listening volunteer, I believe that it stems from as we are growing up, we have been told how we feel and what we think isn't right. So I use the word gaslight in that definition.
Mhm.
And the example that I've given is, you have a young, a new baby brother, and you feel like your world has been displaced. Legitimately, it has happened,
Yeah.
and the valid feeling is angry, upset, jealous. Those are very natural and human. And the parent will probably say, no, you can't be angry, this is your baby sister, you must love her, you can't, so that's an example of why, what's the word I'm looking for, dismissal of your feelings, and your wants. You should be a good sister, you should be this, you need to be this, that's the right way to feel and to be. And so enough of that. You can only be a good daughter if you have a if you get all A's and you be a doctor or things like that. So hammering off other people know what's better for me than myself, I
Yeah.
think.
Yeah. I completely agree. I think, there's everybody wants to give advice and everybody has an opinion. And I think the advent of social media has made that even more widespread in that everyone's commenting on things that actually have nothing to do with them. So it even more so adds to that rhetoric that, we are being, other people's opinions are being thrust upon us, which makes it even more important to listen to yourself. But there needs to be that sense of self in the first place to know that you've got your own inner voice that you can listen to.
Yes, I think that's the important thing, and I think especially for us women, we have many many roles, and we grow up being told that there's an expectation. So the session just before this one was violence against women, and Margot was talking about kind of like where society see us in different forms of violence. That's one topic, but on top of that, it's also the expectation and the roles that we've got to fit, and how ourself usually is the last one, because
Hmm.
everyone says you got to be a good wife, a mother, a teacher, project manager, or whatever roles. But how about the perfect me, the perfect Tracy for Tracy?
Yeah.
No one tells us what that looks like, and only we have to do it for ourselves. And again, no one tells us how we do it, which is the challenging thing. And I think the cost of that is just sadness, really. I can't
Yeah.
think of
And looking at that previous picture of us filling the cups with water, um, this is a slight tangent from topic, but something quite that I found really interesting as part of my sound therapy training. In that there's I don't know if you've heard of a Japanese scientist called Dr. Emoto and his tests with water.
it.
So this is something that I found really interesting in that he did some tests on water molecules
Mm,
and put water in different bottles, and some of the bottles were exposed to humans talking love to the bottle. Some of them were talking gratitude, some of them were talking joy, and then some of the other bottles, they were talking not so positive emotions. They were talking sadness, they were talking evil. So lots of opposite end of the spectrum. And then he froze those bottles of water, and inspected what had happened to the water molecules under a microscope. And there's lots of things on YouTube. If you search Dr. Emoto, you'll find some of the visuals. But the ones that had joy and love and gratitude had almost like morphed into little snowflakes, like really beautiful patterns. And the ones that had the negative emotions were all degraded and not even full molecules anymore. They were fractured and all sorts of things. So, bearing in mind our body is 75 to 78% water, what our internal conversation, if it's sadness, it's going to breed more sadness. If it's
mm,
joy and it's love, it's going to
mm,
breed, it's going to make our energy spark. So if we're constantly living in a place where we're keeping up to other people's expectations and other people's what's best for us, if that's then making us feel negative inside and our internal chatter is negative, then we're going to need somebody at the Samaritans to pick up the phone and listen to us. Whereas if we're taking the other route, and actually, as much as it might be challenging in the moment, to then go into, looking for the things that bring us joy, looking for the things that spark our energy, that's a whole different life experience for human flourishing.
No, that's so fascinating. I really will, kind of look it up. But it doesn't take a stretch of the imagination to even like postulate, in terms of the body. We have hormones and chemicals that we
Oh,
produce,
yeah,
isn't it? So it's not so far-fetched to say, sadness breeds sadness and joy breeds joy. So
yeah.
that's really lovely. I will check it out. So based on this, we're talking about how do we tune in, and separate the noise from the signal. What is it that's my jumble of thoughts and feelings? What does it mean, and where does the compass lie? So I would say, this is, I would say, again, just extrapolating from a lot the conversations I've had, in terms of how to understand, uh, or listen to and hear the signal, is the four questions, which is, how does it feel in your mind, which is the intellectual part, which is the, does it align with my values or my priorities or what's important to me, the left brain logical spotlight question.
Hmm.
How does it feel in my soul, which is like emotional, part of things? What does my body feel like? Because I think a lot of emotions sit somewhere in the body. For example, I think anger comes up in the face, for example, and anxiety is in the stomach. And I think happiness is like more upper body that I feel it. And also energy, the different kinds of energy that it's about, and being kind of like really listening to it. What do you think? Do you think this I'm missing anything here?
The only thing that I would add to this, because I'm completely with you, we need to listen to what's going on from an intellectual basis, or our mind will get very cross because it likes to be in control or likes to think that it's in control. So we need to give it that little ego stroke. And absolutely, we need to be connected to how that feels in the other parts of our body, our body, our soul, how it makes us feel energetically. The other thing that I would add to this is we need to feel all four of these things in the present moment, because I think there's a lot of times that because we build a construct in our brains to justify our thought processes, all of that's based on everything that's happened to us historically and everything that we worry about for the future.
Mm-hmm.
Neither of those things we can control. Um, and I used an example in sound healing that I ask people what they think if they hear footsteps and some footsteps are following you in a dark alley at night. And most of the people will answer that question to, oh my God, I have to run, I'm going to get murdered. But that's really not what's happening at all there. All you're hearing is someone's foot hit a pavement. It's just a sound. But our brains are so clever and also sometimes so annoying that it's made up this whole construct around what we might be thinking. So I think, all of these things are absolutely imperative. And we're never going to be able to separate from what our brain thinks because it's inherently part of us. But I think trying to feel these things in the present moment can sometimes help give clarity to, does it spark our energy?
100%. I love the additional context of how does it feel right now in the present,
Mm.
not in the past and not in the future. So I'd say, the past is where you link all the things and then come to a conclusion which may not be the big the full picture right now. So I love that you've separated it. Thank you. I'll be more man. I will add that if I talk again. Thank you for that.
That's okay. I did also have the, benefit of being able to listen to this talk when you gave it a couple of weeks ago, so I could think about what I was going to say for today.
Thank you for that added kind of like a reflection and adding to it. So I'd say, right, asking all of those questions and being curious without shame. I think a lot of a, a lot of people grow up where shame is used as a behavior modification.
Hmm.
It doesn't really work because it's I don't like that emotion. It just the reason for that is when a lot of our callers, like the dominant emotion is shame
Hmm.
that they haven't fulfilled their own expectations of themselves, or their parents' expectations, or their partner's expectations, or their children's expectation. It's the shame is the feeling that comes to fore.
Yeah.
That's the one that drives a lot of I would like to say, a lot of the dark thoughts is shame is all shrouded in that. So I think if we can be curious why we feel that way, why the sound of something causes this kind of emotion in me, is it because I'm a coward, to hear footsteps and first thing I'm thinking about is running, um because my parents always said I was a coward, that I wouldn't even put my hand up for this assignment at school, or this thing. Then your mind kind of like adds all those things together and
Of course.
presents you with something. Um,
One of
so
the things that we say in sound healing is about being a compassionate witness to what comes up for you, which is, I think is a really lovely turn of phrase for what we're trying to achieve there. Because again, with sound healing, there is, sound is very powerful, and particularly the gong can bring up a lot of, perhaps previous trauma that hasn't been dealt with, or, you know, people dealing with addiction that are carrying around a lot of shame and self-loathing, that comes up for them in a sound bath sometimes, particularly one with reflection. And being a compassionate witness to actually, it's okay to feel those emotions, but our intention is to then help process them and let them go rather than carrying them around with us. I just feel like that compassionate witness aspect is almost a way of detaching yourself from those feelings to allow you to process them.
I like that. There's a, I say, detachment. Some of the kind of like the counselors that I follow, they talk about treating yourself with loving kindness.
Yeah.
Whatever happens, you're asking yourself questions, but don't, uh, yeah, just don't bring shame into it. Is
Mm-hmm.
um, is the point here. So, example, why does this job opportunity not feel as great as you're presenting it to be? Um, so, what I usually tell people is when something feels doesn't feel right, is to turn on really curious, turn on your debug mode and really dig deep. Check in with your how it feels in your mind, your feelings, your body, the energy it gives you at the present time.
Mm-hmm.
Why is this feeling like that now? And be asking curious questions. Why am I resistant? And then maybe when you're asking questions, you might go, oh, actually it's one of these three reasons why I'm resistant. I don't understand this job that you're asking me to do, or I understand it but I don't like it, or I understand it and I like it but I don't like you. I have a feeling that if I think about it a bit more, there could be more layers to this that I could add. But the key thing is to ask the question and listen to the answers. What were you going to say, Tracy?
I was just going to say that sometimes this stuff takes practice as well. You know, like I have been in situations in the past where my gut has said, don't do this. This is not the right situation for you. And then I've done it anyway because my brain has said, but it's a really good opportunity that would look good on your CV. And then afterwards, my gut has been like, why didn't you listen to me? That was a terrible decision. And now you're going to have to deal with it. But, you know, I think it takes practice to actually have the confidence to trust what your inner self is saying to you. And that's okay. You're like, we're human. We're meant to make mistakes. We're meant to get things wrong. And it's how we learn from them and how we proceed from that that is really important.
I have a slightly different take, I think.
Okay.
And I think there's four parts of the question. The mind, body, soul, and the energy that you get. Um, they may not all align the same direction,
Mm-hmm.
and I think what if I was to like te- talk about this to my kids, is that it's okay if they don't align. Like your brain says do it and your gut says no. Is
Mm-hmm.
to have all those parts have an adult grown up conversation and trusting, okay, my brain is actually I trust my brain to know what would be good for me. I
Mm-hmm.
also trust my gut to want to protect me because it is a scary thing,
Mm-hmm.
you know. And trusting that they feel what they feel because that comes from you. And then like I say, have that internal dialogue and then make a decision anyway. So I think I prefer that for my kids.
No, absolutely. And I think now, like having all of this information, you know, it allows you to have that dialogue. I think at that point in time, I was missing pieces of the puzzle. So you do what you think is best in that particular instance. Um, but you learn from that and you look at things differently as you move forward. So yeah, that was the point I was making, really.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
It,
um
yeah.
Sounds like it was the right decision anyway, even though it was scary.
No, it was completely the wrong decision.
Oh, wrong decision.
Yeah, definitely
Oh,
the wrong decision.
I got it. I got it. Okay. Thanks for sharing that. Yeah, sometimes it goes wrong as well, isn't it?
Yeah.
But would you have known beforehand, you
I
think?
think if I had been a little bit more confident in listening to my inner voice, I would have
Mm,
made a different decision.
totally.
But at that point in time, I wasn't, and I didn't have as many tools then as I have now.
Mm,
I wasn't as open to, I suppose, understanding some more of these levels in terms of energy and, you know, how it felt in my soul. So yes, I did make the wrong decision, but I learned from that decision, and it was probably part of the process in my journey to say, well, you needed to learn that lesson the hard way so that you then listen to me going forwards.
that's also a good takeaway from that incident. Thank you. Um, okay, so yeah, so this is where I'm coming from, right? So and then have that
Yeah.
internal dialogue before listening or disregarding. And if the outcome wasn't what you expected, then you learn for the next time.
Yeah.
Yes, I should add that next time I do this talk.
Yeah. But
So,
I should have had more dialogue. You're right. This is exactly the sentence that I needed at that point in time.
but as you're saying, at that time, you may not have all the pieces. So you might be operating with limited information
Hmm.
that only reveals itself once you have crossed the Rubicon. So I had this example. I feel resistant about this because the hiring manager sounds like my stupid ex. How can I stand to be listening to that? But they're not the same person. Job sounds great. I need to just work through it and give it a chance. And sometimes, it's just having that. Can I deal with him sounding like my ex? I don't know. I don't know, to be honest with you, I think if that actually came out, I think my answer might be no. Because that depends on how our relationships. I was talking previously, is like our emotions. Sorry, who we are today is shaped by the experiences that we've had. And before I got married, I was in a quite violent relationship, so I think that has made a huge impact. So if this situation came up, like I said, I'd probably say no. I'm sorry, you're a great person, but you sound too much like my ex. Maybe, I don't know. Maybe I have a bigger character, and I might say yes. I don't know. I've not been presented with it, so this is
It's difficult to know how you would respond until, like you say, you are in that moment, and you know you might have thought that you've dealt with that, but actually then on the sound of the voice, that could be really triggering for you. So then, you know, we've got to make the right decisions in the moment for how we feel in that moment, right?
yeah, yeah,
Yeah,
no,
a difficult one to predict.
absolutely, absolutely. So then we talked about creating space for self-listening, and I think we had a lot of really good responses at Women in Tech from
Yeah.
things we know. I think it's meditation, yoga, go out for a walk, journaling, all the self-care activities.
Yeah. And I think it's really important not to put too much pressure on that self-care. I think even if it's 5 minutes, it's better than no minutes. And if you've got 5 minutes of doing something that brings you joy,
Mhm.
that's brilliant. Even it could be something as stupid as, walking from a tube station to a tube station rather than getting the
Oh
tube because you got the opportunity to walk through Green Park,
yeah,
or, whatever the case may be. It doesn't need to be this kind of big plan of, I need to have all of this self-care in
yes.
the process. It could be listening to the Calm app and doing some breathing exercises whilst you're on the train on the way home, or you know doing some face yoga whilst you're driving the car, because then no one can see how silly your face looks. um, or it could be going to a 4-hour workshop at the weekend to do all sorts of craziness. But
Yeah,
I think it's important to do what fits with the other things that you have in your life that gives you the opportunity to self-listen.
yeah, yeah. I love that little space and little, often a little rather than trying to wait until I got a big chunk of time to look after myself. So I
Yeah.
like so the talk was about listening to your inner voice in a tech company. So I had that as a career compass, but it kind of just reiterating that if things don't feel right, it's to, stop and analyze, um, spidey sense, the same, uh, that this doesn't, whatever it is, the assignment, a job, task, or role doesn't feel right, then it is, always check in the
Mhm.
soul, body, mind, and energy at the present time. I'm going to keep going there. Um, Keep asking the hard questions and pay attention to the difficult answers that we might hear. Maybe we don't want to do this because we are too scared, or we still scarred, or we really don't feel like we will be able to do it and it will be exposed.
Yeah, that's a real big one with, again, particularly women, I think. Like men say yes and worry about the how later.
Mhm,
In a
mhm.
lot of instances, obviously that's a huge generalization, not always.
Yeah,
Whereas I think we always worry that we won't be capable. And that again probably comes from listening too much to others telling us what's best for us.
no, absolutely. Because as human beings, I think we're all complicated, messy,
Yeah,
imperfect. Um, but if we don't listen to all the imperfect voices inside, who don't have all the information to make perfect decisions, then we can't move forward.
no.
We all have to do the emotional labor, the hard work. Now I'm going to stop there and ask you to share the poem that you shared.
Oh, yes,
Do you have that?
I do have it. So, this poem is from this book, To the Women by Donna Ashworth.
Mm,
I use it for some inspiration for some of my yoga meditations when I'm teaching. But this one, I just kind of felt like it really sat well with the content of the
mm,
talk that we were having today. So it's called Gut Feelings. Gut feelings are like guardian angels. Listen very closely to those little messages that start in your tummy and try very hard to be heard. They may be the voices of those who walk with you, your guardian angels doing their thing. Pay attention to the hairs that bristle on the back of your neck. For when that happens, you've been touched from above by someone who has your very best interests at heart. What is it they heard that made them connect? Go back, find it, listen. If you are struggling to make a decision, my friend, say it out loud as though you were talking to a loved one and wait for the feelings that follow. You are never, ever alone. You are always being guided in everything that you do. Likewise, when your instincts are screaming at you to leave, to free yourself, to move on to better things, listen hard. They are right. Pay close attention to the voices deep inside. They are your guardian angels. So listen.
I love that. As I was feeling my hairs.
You're like, oh, the energy has come.
So that was really lovely. What a wonderful way to close off this session. And I am hoping you can see the session, the comments that we've had.
Yeah, they're lovely.
We have people who've been listening in, and I hope it resonates. And I think learning to listen to ourselves will go a long way to creating a more happy life for all of us at the
Yeah.
at the end of our life, I think so. um I just want to pop this just before we close up. All of you who are watching, I hope you will donate to my branch, or even if you don't, that you have listened to the session, you've taken away something that's valuable to you and that will allow you to help other people, and not um not put expectations on other people, and help them to also, what am I trying to say here? Sorry, my brain's stumbling. To So I'm thinking about myself as a parent. So allow my children, for example, that I'm thinking about, to feel how they're feeling so that they can trust their own feelings, or even your team, the way you talk to them and how you are showing up is to help them cultivate the trust and listen to themselves.
Be a compassionate witness while supporting them.
I love that. Thank you. Thank you. That was so much more eloquent, compassionate witness to the voice that is telling you something.
Yeah. And I have not been awake since midnight, so probably why I found a few more words.
Thank you. I appreciate you being here, Tracy, and I look forward to seeing you at an event again soon. Thank you.
Yeah, likewise. And good luck with the rest of your sessions. And donate, 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 people.
Yes, please. Thank you. Bye.